Good
Hello.
morning, everyone. This is a very special chat that we're going to have today with Dr. Linda Bender. This is not only for pet parents, pet guardians, but it's for all animal lovers. And if people are not yet really in touch with the animal kingdom, this conversation is also for them. It might be very, very enlightening. I am going to introduce Dr. Linda Bender first. And it might seem that I'm going to do a little bit of talking, quite a bit in the beginning, and after that, it's going to go over to Dr. Linda Bender because it's not about me. It's about this incredible book and her thoughts, her wisdom, and the experiences she has shared. But I'll tell you a little bit about this incredible, incredible lady. Dr. Linda Bender holds a doctorate degree in veterinary medicine, is a gifted healer and spiritual teacher. She is an internationally renowned animal advocate, speaker, and author of the award winning Amazon bestseller, Animal Wisdom Learning from the Spiritual Lives of Animals. This book, incredible. Her work has been endorsed, get ready, by Dr. Jane Goodall, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, Deepak Chopra, and many more. During the 14 years she spent living in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, her work included the rescue, rehabilitation, and protection of wildlife. This work deepened her passion to be a strong voice for the voiceless in the world. Thank you. Her interest in spirituality led her to study many of the world's wisdom and healing traditions. She is a certified teacher of meditation, Ayurveda, and energy medicine. She's also the co-founder of From the Heart, a nonprofit charity that directly serves animals and her habitats. We are going to list all the information and her website of her organization as well as her social media so anyone can read more about her and get in touch with her or even help her in this incredible with this incredible cause. I wanted to say one more thing, Linda. Thank you for being here with us, for giving us your time. I read your book early this year, and I've always considered myself a spiritual person, meditating and always trying to connect to that higher power. But never before did I think of animals that way, that they are spiritual beings, that they had so much wisdom. And when I read your book early this year, and also of your good friend, Barbara Shore, I got so interested because your book, as well as books by, for example, Barbara Shore, they really validated what I
Mm.
was feeling with my own animals. I have six wonderful pets, and I would look at them and I would say, he has wisdom. Or that one looks like he's meditating. And when I practice my meditation in the morning, every morning I wake up, they surround me and they know not to jump on me and they sit quietly around me and
Mm.
meditate with me. And I thought, how is it that they know what I am and we're so in tune? So thank you so much
Oh,
for your wonderful book. One of my darling darling companion of 16 years, transitioned last week. And during his days of hospice at home, I picked up your book and I
uh,
read it a second time. And the
mm.
solace that I felt and found in reading your words all over again were invaluable. Invaluable. And, you
You.
know, Dr. Linda Bender reminds us that anima from animal. Oh no.
He
You
just
are.
jumped up when you
Oh, and who is he? Luna?
This is Leo. This is Leo. He's our newest family member. He just jumped
Oh,
up when you were speaking of your dog. Come,
because
let's put
Leo
you.
has something to say, you know? And my
Yeah.
Oliver is so grateful that you are speaking to all of us today. I know my Ollie out there is so grateful. So Dr. Linda Bender reminds us that anima, the word from animal, the root word of animal means soul. And that is something that I never knew before. So I want to say one more thing about Dr. Linda Bender. She says a huge part of her motivation for writing this book was to plead the case for the conservation of endangered animals and their habitats, and to raise awareness of many animals, wildlife, and domestic animals who suffer from human exploitation, cruelty, and neglect. Particularly heartbreaking is the devastating increase of the homelessness in our companion animal population. While trying to think of a better approach, her procedure was to settle down and meditate. And that's how, she developed this close relationship. And when I read that, this was her reason for writing the book. Our mission of Nurture Your Pet, we are in alignment. We both have the same mission of raising the consciousness of this planet because we both believe that mankind is innately good. We just don't have the awareness, the
Mhm.
knowledge, the education. And I just think if mankind is more aware, slowly this our consciousness level increases and expands, and only goodness can come from that. Because our vision, we have hope, Dr. Linda. We have hope, and that's what's important, not to give up. So thank you for
Never
that.
give up.
Thank you so much. So I have the first question for you. Welcome. Welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. And you're absolutely delightful and a true kindred spirit.
It's true, I feel it. So, Linda, I
Yes.
have to ask you, have you always been connected to animals? Please tell us a bit about your first experiences and how you got here. I
Mm,
would love to know. We would all.
mm. Well, thank you. Thank you for your very kind words. And well, I have to say, I've been asked this question when I connected first with animals so many times. And the first time I was asked, I remember pausing, thinking, okay, when did this start? And I honestly could not come up with a time when this began. And it made me realize that I actually came in this way for whatever reason. Um, I cannot remember a time before I was connected to an animal. And when I was a young girl, I grew up in New Jersey in a little town called Livingston. And it was wonderful because it was very lots of wildlife, trees. It was a lovely suburban area before it became, I mean, there were still farms. It was a beautiful area. And it was also 40 minutes from New York City.
Right.
So it was quite special. But as a young girl, I really was more comfortable outside with the animals and the wildlife than I was inside with the humans. And I remember overhearing my parents, gosh, I was so young, maybe three,
Yeah.
thinking, oh, she's not talking. I didn't speak. I didn't speak. And I remember them talking about taking me to the doctor and thinking, oh my God, this kid's deaf. And I distinctly remember thinking, No, I'm not. I just have nothing to say to you.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was connected so deeply to animals
Mm,
outside. My mother had depression issues, so
mm,
she was emotionally unavailable. So
mm.
I felt that I was imprinted almost by the birds, the deer, the raccoons, and we had so many wonderful um,
Wow.
different types of birds, and I would be out there with them, rabbits. So it was an unspoken connection. There was no need for words.
Mhm.
It was an intuitive uh, connection that was my normal. That was my norm. So as a young girl, I didn't doubt. It just truly was my reality. And I'll give you an example of sitting out in the yard and looking at the birds. I used to love the blue jays and the bluebirds and the robins. And we had this wonderful dogwood tree. It had big pink blossoms, and it was an early spring day. And I was sitting outside by myself, and I was just in awe of the sounds of nature and the birds and this beautiful tree. And I was gazing at the blossoms, and a beautiful robin was on one of the branches. And it's what I would call a natural interspecies connection.
Mhm.
Remember, we're all energy, we're all information. We all are interconnected, even different species, nature, trees, whatever. But I suddenly remember looking at this, gazing at this bird and entering a different consciousness. Now, I wasn't aware of this at the time. This was just normal. But I what you would call had an somewhat of an out of body experience where I lost connection of where I ended, my hands, my arms, where I
Wow.
ended, and the bird and the tree ended and began. And so there was this, like I think in my book I describe it as having champagne bubbles, but a oneness.
Yeah.
And that oneness for me, as I understood it, was connecting to what animals were showing me and helping me experience was the connection to source, whatever you want to call that. Um, you know, there's a wonderful physicist who was quoted not too long ago and saying, something out there is doing something I know not what. And I often call it God or source, whatever. I
Yeah.
knew I was one with all. And that bird, the tree, invited me into that consciousness.
How old were
And
you then? At what?
oh, I was probably 5 or 6. Yeah. And I have found over the years, and we can talk a little bit about meditation
Yes.
and techniques and all the things that we can learn that can help us. But I have found that, and the reason I'm so encouraging people to go out and spend time in nature and just allow, because most of my spiritual experiences have happened in nature, in experiences with animals and trees and birds, just um, it's an invitation.
It is.
And so I grew up with that and I never lost it. And I thought that's how everyone was. Well, I soon learned that that was not the case. Yes, but animals understand. And so all kinds of creatures were finding their way to my back door. I was healing this one. This one was coming to me for whatever. The birds, the fledglings would be, wounded and they'd find their way to my doorstep. So it was really my whole youth. And my father was a great helper and champion and encouraged me to continue.
How wonderful. That's, you know, Linda, you wrote in your book a beautiful story of your encounter with the buffaloes, and I was blown away.
The
Please,
buffaloes.
yes.
Sure. So, as I never thought that my life's work would even be a veterinarian because I didn't think I could stand the bad things that go along with having to put dogs to
Yeah.
sleep and wounds and all that sort of thing. But at any rate, I was bumped along and that was what I was meant to do, and so I did. Um, and while I was traveling, this is one point in time when I was in Africa, and I was at Kruger Park. I was in South Africa. Have you been to Kruger Park
I
ever? And
haven't
there's
been. I lived in
beautiful.
Cape Town for a year.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that wasn't the year I went, but I will go. I have to go.
Well, yeah. So I was working at a friend's reserve,
Hmm.
the White Lion Trust, and we had a free day, and it was actually the day before I was leaving the country. And there were about five of us, and we were in Kruger Park. We had a great day. We just saw so much wildlife. It was really exciting, and it was so much fun and such a blessing for me. And it was getting near 5 o'clock when the gates were going to close. So I I was bouncing along in the back, and we were heading toward the gate. And as it happened, there was a herd of buffalo
Hmm.
that just crossed over in front of our Jeep. We were going slow enough that, we of course had to come to a stop. There were at least 50, maybe more. Big ones, little ones, all ages. And they were a herd and they just stopped. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I hope they'll move so we can get out before closing. And then I realized this was more than just a crossing herd. They were stopped and they were looking. They were looking. And I know that look, that gaze, that intense connection. And I looked, and sure enough, it was the first time in all the years of me connecting with animals that I actually felt, and again, this is hard to describe. I want to say words because I'm very hesitant to say that, but I clearly heard, "We have taught you well. Do not forget us. Do not forget us. Teach the humans what you know. Do not forget us." And it was as if someone punched me in the stomach almost. It was that powerful.
My goodness.
And that actually, after that, it changed the trajectory of my work. And I knew what my father had been telling me for many, many years. I needed to write a book. I needed to work with the humans.
Yeah.
And that is where I was being pushed because I originally thought, oh, it's just between me and the animals. I
Yeah.
have this special bond with animals. No, I realized that there was more to do. And there was another story that happened. I did go home. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever done was write my book because I'm not an author, but I had boxes and mounds of stories and things to write and
Well, you
things
could
I
have
really
fooled me
wanted.
because, sorry to interrupt, you could have fooled me when you say you're not an author. But
Well, it was
you wrote
hard.
so eloquently. I mean, the words were so, so beautiful. So, yes, you are
Thank
an
you.
author, a poet. Oh, my goodness.
Thank you.
Everything.
And it just comes, I feel as though I'm the conduit. Much of what's in that book
Yeah.
and much of, yes, my stories and all that, it comes from the heart
Mm.
and it comes through me.
Yeah.
And and that's how it is. But I wrote the book and I started teaching, and I thought I was doing okay. And I was back in Africa again.
Mhm.
And I was with a group of Sangomas, the spiritual, these magical teachers, very spiritual women, these Sangomas. And we were in a small group. And again, I was getting ready to leave. I'd done my work. I talked about things and was trying to help. And we were a small circle, and this one very powerful Sangoma came round, and one by one, she praised everyone for the work they were doing with animals. And I was the last. And she said, and you come with me. And she took me
Oh
aside.
boy.
She
Oh
put this
boy.
very powerful finger in my face and said, if you want to do the work you're called to do, you have to learn to love the humans.
Yeah.
I got really angry. Of course, not at her. I was just, oh my God, everyone else got these kudos and I was told off, had a dressing down. And I thought, oh God, it's never enough. It's never enough. But she was so right.
Yeah.
Because in order for me to get people to hear what I was saying and teaching,
Yeah.
I had to expand that connection to include a deep love for humans.
Absolutely. And you also wrote the buffaloes. That also caught my heart when everything
Yeah.
caught my heart. You said, and they said, and we do not forget you. The buffaloes said that.
Yes.
And we do not
Right.
forget you. And that meant
Yes.
a lot to me because, you also have pages, a chapter in the book, how important this bond is between us and all
Mhm.
the animals. Yes, we don't experience, I mean, I've gone swimming with dolphins, I've gone whale watching, whatever, but the closest we experience is usually with our pets.
Yes.
And when you have a beautiful chapter in your book where you talk about, how dogs know so much. You also mention how, and we can see, especially, the last few years have been challenging on planet Earth. The
Yes.
energy, the vibrations, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of grief, there are a lot of challenges. Um, and I feel that we've lost our way somehow, but what you wrote was such a beautiful reminder to me that, but we have the answers here because look at our pets, look at everything that our pets can help us with. And
Yes.
you
Yes.
mentioned so many things that even scientists find this a phenomena. And how, for
Yes.
example, how the dogs know when you're coming home. And I'm going to again let you speak about
Yes.
illnesses and all this that your pets can detect in you.
Well, I have to say that I believe our dogs are our greatest example of unconditional love. They are the purest love relationship that we have. We are so blessed
Yeah.
with our relationship with dogs, and many people have it with their cats too.
Yes.
But I speak of dogs because they have taught me so much, so very much. And in all my experiences throughout my life, I have learned. I once fantasized that, oh, all I want to do is just hang out with my dogs, and life would be bliss,
Yes.
And there's so, so much. And it's why we grieve so
I
when we
know.
leave. There's actually a cute interview. I don't know if you saw it, but Jane Goodall had an interview with Stephen Colbert whenever ago. And he said, oh, I understand that even after all the work you've done with, uh, all the work you've done and with all the wildlife, he said, I understand that's not your favorite. What's your favorite? And she said, dogs. Dogs are my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, she felt that they are the closest to us and offer us a divine connection. And I jokingly say, we pray to the gods, we pray to these incarnate beings, and yet our dogs are right here in,
Right here.
here with us in the body, experiencing so many of the same feelings and emotions and pain and suffering and love and joy as we are, and they are so pure. They are this bundle of
So
pure
pure. You know,
love.
we look at them and we like Mother Teresa says, the biggest disease that we have on this planet is loneliness. And that
Yes,
shouldn't be, because look at all the wonderful pets that, are beloved. We will use the word God throughout our chat, but it's any higher power
yes,
of your understanding. You can name it
right,
whatever, because it's not religious or spiritual, but there is
right.
a higher power that we cannot, it's a mystery out there. But we have that. We came and we have this right next to us. We try to humanize our pets,
Yes, yes.
but I now look at them and thanks to your book, I really connect and I ask them questions. It's incredible, and how you wrote in your book, how they can. Oh, Linda, give us the examples of the illnesses that you mentioned. How the
Well,
book
yes,
can detect that.
we've
That's
we've
incredible.
learned a lot about how dogs can detect certain illnesses. And I want to say that the most important thing, and this has been tested, let's just keep it simple to start. Dogs that know when their owners are coming home.
Yeah,
People, the skeptics all say, oh, it's just sounds, it's this, it's whatever. It's been tested, and my friend, the scientist Rupert Sheldrake, has a book called that, Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home. But the most important thing, and what determines what what makes that connection happen, and it's the emotional bond. It's
yeah,
the emotional love bond between the animal, will in this case we'll say our dog, and the owner. So when an owner is gets the intention to go home, that's been shown. When that intention to go home is thought, that's a thought, that's when the dog goes to the door.
yeah,
And it happens because there is the love, the bond, the connection. It's not how many miles away. It's not a sound. It's that intuitive love bond connection that ignites that. Oh, there they are. There they are. They're coming home now. Oh, they're thinking.
yeah,
And it's truly amazing how that particular connection is what creates so much of this. And I also believe that that's true because dogs have such a pure love that when they connect with people who are ill, have certain illnesses, they can. Yes, some of it has been proven to be a smell or an action, but a lot of it is that emotional connection. It
yeah.
just is.
It just is. And, I mean, for me, initially when I had my pets, for me, they became such a huge emotional support,
Yes.
whenever, because they also know, and they come and they sit next to you, and the wet licks and everything were so welcomed when you're
Yes.
sad. So emotionally, mentally, as well as, when you're sick physically, they just sense that and they know that. And I I truly say, when I started Nurture Your Pet, is because for me it was, look at how the pets nurture us. We
Yes.
need to know how to nurture. them,
Them.
them.
Yes,
And you wrote in your book, I know I use the word a lot.
that's
In
all
your book,
right.
you quoted Mahatma Gandhi, and you said the quote of Mahatma Gandhi was in your book: "The greatest of a nation can be
Oh,
judged
yes.
by the way its animals are
That's
treated."
created.
Because
Yes,
what we do to animals, we do to ourselves.
that's right.
How we value all life forms and how we treat them are true measures of our humanity. And really, Linda, I mean, you could
Yes.
not have put these words in a better way.
Yes.
It's really
Uh-huh.
profound. It is.
It's the reciprocity. What we do to animals, we do to ourselves.
Yeah,
And animals know this. They have um that inner understanding, because again, we are incarnate together. We share those feelings of angst, of sorrow, of anger, and they get it. When we are bonded emotionally by love,
yeah,
they get it. And
yeah,
they share and they feel for us. But we have to be careful, not to think of animals as there for simply our
yeah,
our improvement or our health or our happiness. As you said just a little while ago, we have to be concerned about them
yeah,
and their happiness. And they are with us a short period of time, considering their lifespans, and they deserve all the love and the care and the
yeah,
kindness, compassion that we can give them back.
yeah, yes. And for animals, the source is not up there.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you wrote. It is a universal connection, like one mind, which embodies what they're made of and what everything else is made of. And you wrote this so beautifully because they're sentient beings, and we need to understand, they do have feelings, they have emotions,
Right,
they're sentient.
right.
And you wrote,
Yes.
"They breathe, eat, and swim in the same source that we have."
Yes.
When the sun comes out, you wrote, "they feel the warmth of the source." When the rain comes, they feel the wetness of the source. The wind is the source of all blowing over their feathers or fur. And I mean, I could go on and on about things that you expressed, and you say in in your book, where we have trouble accepting ourselves. We see, too much room for improvement in ourselves. Please talk a bit more about that. How we have a hard time accepting ourselves, and how you wrote about these pets and animals, what they see in us.
Yes.
We don't see.
Yes. Well, I mean, think about it. I have never, in all my experience, I have never met a dog, the ugliest dog in the world, who was worried about how he looked. Dogs don't care. And
Yeah,
it's not about how you look or what you say. If you love them, they love you back. You could be God knows what, right? But if you're good to them,
yeah,
they will
they
love
love.
you. I remember one specific story, my dog Pepper, who's on the cover of the book.
Hmm,
He was a character.
pepper.
That's Pepper. Well, two quick stories about Pepper. Speaking of
Hmm.
dogs that know when their owners are coming home,
Yeah,
I had a white sofa in my living room, and
yeah,
Pepper, the rule in the house was no dogs on the white sofa,
yeah.
right? No dogs on it. And that was just the way it was. I never saw him up there. He never went. He never tried it. And apparently, years later, when I was talking about some of these things with my two kids, they started laughing so hard. And they said, Mom, when you weren't home, Pepper was always sprawled out on the white sofa.
Exactly.
Never,
Yes,
you know, never.
Mark.
Anytime I came home, there was a room, a glass sort of doorway and like a solarium. He would always be there. He knew way in advance that I was coming. But the other thing I wanted to say about Pepper is that I was giving a talk. I was doing something, getting ready, and I was really fretting about, oh, what I was going to wear, what I was going to look. I felt like I was a mess. I think I'd been not feeling well or whatever. And I remember looking in the mirror and thinking, oh my God, I'm a mess. What am I going to do? And I saw Pepper sitting there at attention, and then he was cocking his head. It was as if he was confused. He was picking up on the fact of that I was stressed about this,
Yeah.
and it was just as if he was saying, "You are the personification of beauty and splendor. Why are you worrying about this?" And I remember actually cracking up laughing, thinking, oh, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It'll all be fine. I'm being silly. So there's that constant reminder that they get it.
They get it. No judgment. No, always accepting, no judgment, and very, very forgiving. Not only
Yes.
pets, I think
Yes.
the entire animal kingdom and living species, the
Mm,
trees, the forests, the flowers. I feel that because just like you, I have a connection a bit, but not as much as to the extent I wouldn't dare say to the extent that you have. But yes, I like to disappear into the forest and hug
mhm.
trees because I feel the love. I really,
Yes.
and what we do here on this planet consciously, I would say unconsciously. I would
Yes.
like to believe that what is happening unconsciously, and we can fix that by talking about it, by educating, and
Exactly.
we can fix that. And
Exactly.
and I really do feel that they're so forgiving. Linda, do
Yes.
our pets, dogs, cats, do they miss us when we're gone?
Oh, I believe so. Yes. Again, it's all about that bond.
Yeah,
Yes. And there are some great videos of on Instagram and all that of the joy that they share when we come home. And my daughter, who lives in Australia, she has a special connection with my dog Luna,
yeah,
and whenever she comes, we trot out to the airport,
yeah.
and Luna makes a display minute he sees her. And it is just pure joy, pure love. But even if you go out to the get the mail, the post box,
Yes.
and come back, you can receive that same joyous greeting. Yeah,
It
yeah.
it feels like heaven. Every time I come home, I'm ambushed.
Yes.
They jump on me, they jump on my bed, and if I have to go to the washroom to wash my face, they're barking outside the washroom and they're like, "Mommy, hurry up. We're waiting for you.
Yes.
It's bedtime." And so Linda, you wrote so many things. Let's talk about animals communicating telepathically, and
Mm.
I know we mentioned it before about how they do, but can you give us an example on how these animals can travel for miles? I'll let you speak and find their way even crossing borders. I mean, you have a
Oh,
beautiful example of that.
yeah. Well, again, there's several stories that I
Yeah,
have in the book. I know the one about the there was actually the dog that during World War II
yes,
that escaped and found his owner on a battlefield. He managed to cross the channel. I mean, it's an extraordinary story,
It it really is.
and how do we explain these things? Some of it's a mystery because we can't explain it away. We can't logically say, well, it was a scent or it was this or that or the other thing. Many of these stories, they cannot be explained. And again, for me, if you have a loving bond with an animal, distance doesn't matter,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Distance doesn't matter.
yeah,
So that connection is there.
yeah,
It isn't dependent
yeah,
on close proximity.
yeah. Your book is full of wonderful, wonderful stories. And that's why I thought it was so valuable because you speak about them sensing when you're in danger. You give
Mm,
us so many examples that were proven, it's not just your thoughts, but these were proven by
mhm.
scientists, and and they can't even explain how these animals know so much. And
Yeah,
we, among us humans, we don't even have that connection the way with each other, the way
that's right.
some of us do. We have a
Yeah.
connection with the ones closest to us, but still, this is in this is really incredible. I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on, do animals have a soul? Do
Oh,
they?
of course. Yes. I was doing an interview once with Deepak Chopra, and he said, "Where do you draw the line
Yeah,
about alive, conscious soul?" I said, "Well, I don't." I said,
yeah,
"No, all life is soul. All life is soul." And that would have, I guess we could use the term animism
yeah,
or panpsychism. These are terms whereby everything is alive.
yeah,
There may be different, like perhaps if you think if everything is energy and information. So even a rock, now it's quite dense and it's not moving,
hmm,
but on some level, on this deep cellular level, there is movement, there is
yeah.
there is life.
There's
And then we
vibration.
go up. Yeah, we go up from there, right?
Yes,
Uh, and it just is. All life to me is soul. How could it not? In my way of thinking and in my life experiences,
yes,
nothing is excluded. Everything is alive. All life is soul.
yes. So when you say how you communicate with animals or even interspecies, you have, again, you wrote down how you go in that space. Can you give us a few tips and explain how we as, not very experienced beings, how can we start communicating with our animals? Can you give us some?
The first thing I want to say is this, I'm not anything special. We can all do this.
Mhm,
I like to say it's like exercising a muscle.
mhm,
If you've never been to the gym and your muscle is flaccid and you're not moving very well and it's very weak, that's the exact same thing as intuition.
mhm,
And the more you work it, the more you do it, the more you open yourself to that connection, the stronger it becomes. It is. Again, it's like exercising a muscle.
correct.
But I want to say that it's more learning to communicate with not only animals and nature, but other humans, is to first, it's not a doing, it's a letting go.
Yeah.
And it's also a forgetting. And
Mhm,
it's why children are so easily uh, creative and
mhm.
connected. It's because they haven't developed all the barriers. In our Western society and in all, I mean, it's
Oh,
around the world now, it's the whole world. we're so reduced
Mhm.
to our five senses
Mhm.
that we've shut all of that down.
Mhm.
Well, we can reawaken that
Yeah.
because our in ancient times that was the norm. In the past 300, 400 years, we've shut a lot of that down, particularly here. If we can't see it, it doesn't exist. If it's not human, it isn't alive. So we've got a lot of forgetting to do. So if
Mhm.
we, the first thing to think about is letting go of old paradigms
Mhm.
and going back to the mind of a child, curiosity, openness, letting go, okay? Allowing ourselves to feel our hearts open. Oftentimes people's hearts are broken open. For example, I know in with the love of an animal. Oh gosh, I could give so many examples, but I'll just generalize and say many people have learned to love animals because they see one in pain, they see one suffering, they see something that they couldn't believe was an animal was capable of. I know it was true in Africa with the elephants. There was a back in the days of Roosevelt, 100 and some years ago, where they would go on treks and hunt and shoot elephants. There was a one wonderful man who became a great conservationist and environmentalist, but he used to be a guide. And he said, I was out and I shot an elephant. And he said, I watched as the others in the herd came by that elephant, tried to raise it, they were trumpeting and screaming and mourning. And it was so overwhelming to this man. He said, I had no idea. He said, I would never kill another, and he said, living soul
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
But what we have the luxury of doing is awakening that sense with our dogs or our cats or the birds in the sky. But it truly is a joyful letting go and opening our hearts. There's so much awakening
Mhm.
for us if we allow. If I could, if you'd like, I can offer you a guided meditation that might be helpful. If
That would be absolutely beautiful. I do have a few questions to ask, and that will be
Sure, we
treat,
could do
the
that at
treat
the
that you
end.
can give us, because I want
Yeah,
you to leave us that way. In
yes,
that guided. Oh,
yeah,
that would be one. You mean do it here, right here,
yeah. We're all
all
gonna
of
do.
us?
We'll do it. Yep.
Oh, that's incredible. I'm gonna make a note of that. And
Okay.
so we speak a lot. You speak a lot about their intelligence, that they have this consciousness, and that was very enlightening for me, and how they are our teachers.
Mm,
Linda, there was a beautiful, again, many beautiful paragraphs. You had a horse, and I think her or him, her name was Je t'aime.
yes.
How describe how you felt? I have it all written down, but the way you wrote, how you felt when you rode your beautiful horse, all those emotions.
Yeah. That's I was living in Ghana at the time, and Jitem I was teaching a class, and every day I would go down to the stables. It was a makeshift polo club. And there were fabulous horses there. And then there were some not so fabulous horses. And I would go down and exercise a lot of the horses. And Jitem, well, we just bonded. We just bonded because she was kind of ignored. She was delicate. She had some fears. And so we would ride out every day. I took her out faithfully. into the bush, we'd just go free. I mean, I wasn't supposed to be doing that, but we did.
Yeah.
And we'd go out bareback.
Oh,
But our time together, just out in the bush on the trails, was so precious. I never worried about anything. I think I may or not have mentioned it there, but I never worried about the snakes because horses can sense and know a snake. So I never worried about that. So one day, I think this is what you're asking me about, how the freedom, the freedom we felt. It was a
yes.
beautiful, it was a gorgeous day.
Oh,
And I would walk her out through a certain trail, and then there was a big field that was wide open. And I used to say, "All right, girl, let her rip." And she'd go as fast as she could. And on this one day, I could just feel her joy doing what she was made to do, just gallop as fast as she could. And I was holding on and in the flow with her. And the two of us, we sensed a bond and a oneness that was such joy. And it was not an out of body experience because I felt my body. It was simply a oneness of her with me, with the openness, with the sun, with everything. And it was, again, I think I say champagne bubbles were popping all over. And it was such a joyous encounter. And that to me is what heaven and bliss is all about.
it's right
And
here. It's
yeah,
right
yeah,
here, Linda.
that's
Paradise
right.
is right here. We're just a little lost. We've lost our way
That's right. That's
a
right.
bit.
And so we can, if we allow ourselves to open, and
Yes.
it's always through that heart connection, we can in everyday life experience this joy of aliveness. I call it, I refer to it as the joy of aliveness. It's why a bird sings in the tree. You know, it's not that their life is easy and that things are so great and that's why they're singing. No, no, they're constantly on alert of something eating them or killing them or whatever, bad weather, horrible things happening. They're singing because they have a joy of aliveness.
And
And
we
they
forget
also
that.
have a trust, you know,
Yeah.
and we we're so afraid to trust. And that's why what I've learned so deeply from animals is at when they're ill or the end of their lives or at certain times when you think, oh, this is horrible, animals trust and they approach death and dying differently than we do. So they trust. They
It's
trust.
incredible. When I was in South Africa in Cape Town, I spent a year there with looking after newborn abandoned babies from the townships. You know, they were babies who had been abandoned because of a result of rape or whatever. And these little tiny newborns, Linda, I held them in my hands and they would just look up at me. And I thought I went to Cape Town to serve them. But when I came away a year later, I was transformed because I
Mm.
learned from these babies the trust. They didn't worry who was going to feed them, where their next meal would come from, who was holding them. They just through their eyes, and I felt, wow, we get, well, this
Yes.
word jaded because we get disappointed so much by humans, especially because we're always in touch with humans. And yes, I'm guilty of that too. I mean, of lacking trust. And
Mhm, mhm.
and we need to learn this is the wisdom of these animals. And I'm learning also not it's not just trusting another human, but definitely trusting a higher power.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
That
Yes.
for me has become huge. You know, you wrote a well, actually, here's a poem that Rumi wrote, and I would love so much for you to quote.
Oh,
If
to
you
read the
yeah,
poem.
can you read it for
Yeah, this is so near and dear to my heart because I went through a very difficult time when I couldn't heal. I mean, as a healer, as a veterinarian, my whole life is about helping and healing animals. And um, I witnessed a senseless killing of beautiful birds, and I really said, I don't know if I can stand this world anymore. It was not it was a terrible time. And one of the things that I included in the book because it was so powerful for me was this poem by Rumi. I'd be happy to read it.
yes, please do. Very powerful.
Was talking about protecting animals. And I said, our rage can be instinctive, ferocious, and devastating. When love cracks us open like this, leaving us so vulnerable, more than we think we can stand. The temptation to shut down, to lock up our hearts and throw away the key is fierce. In our spiritual lives, this is our moment of truth, the moment we either retreat to safety or step forward and claim the vastness and terror of our full capacity to love. And here are Rumi's words. He says it far better than I. The grapes of my body can only become wine after the winemaker tramples me. I surrender my spirit like grapes to his trampling, so my innermost heart can blaze and dance with joy. Although the grapes go on weeping blood and sobbing, I cannot bear any more anguish, any more cruelty. The trampler stuffs cotton in his ears. I am not working in ignorance. You can deny me if you want. You have every excuse. But it is I who am the master of this work. And when through my passion you reach perfection, you will never be done praising my name.
Beautiful. Really. Um,
It's it's
very
powerful.
emotional. Um, and talking about emotional, obviously, when you wrote about um, the hyacinths, is that how you say it?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, the
And
macaws.
you wrote about seeing the beaver and the beagle, the squirrel, and the beagle pass away.
Yes,
You said something that was again so deep, which I did not know before. When you said this, I think it was the little squirrel
the
that
presence.
swim around.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd let you.
Yeah. Well, I learned this from a squirrel, believe it or not. But I was walking down the street. It's two stories that were uh, close to each other. I was walking down the street, just walking with a girlfriend, and I was too far away to prevent a little pup that ran out of a house and it shot out in front of a car. And it was horrible. I just, the car hit it straight on and the owner screamed. So I was close enough to witness this horrible thing and it flew out. It was gone. I ran. By the time I got to it, it was just lying there in the street and the owner was hysterical. And I remember thinking, here I am, a vet, a healer. Okay, God, why would you? This was senseless. I wasn't close enough to do anything to help, but boy, I could see it all. I could witness it all, and it was very upsetting to me, obviously. And not that many days later, I kept saying, what's the point? What's the point? What's the point? I was driving down a road near where I live, and a car in front of me, I witnessed a squirrel. I love squirrels. It ran out in front of the car and it was hit, and the car didn't stop, do anything. It just kept on going. I don't know why, but they did. So I, of course, slammed on the brakes, jumped out of the car, blocked the traffic, went over to this squirrel, and it was in a bad way, and it was still alive. But this squirrel had the capacity to flip its head and its body over just enough to catch my glimpse, my gaze. And that squirrel, I'll never forget the look. But that squirrel said to me, not in words, but this is all feelings and intuitive connection. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Your love, your connection meant everything.
Wow.
So I like that story because of what it taught me, but I so often hear from people over the years, I hear this a lot. I felt so helpless. I heard an animal, or I saw an animal wounded or hit on a road, or often it's, a car accident or something. And I got out of the car and I held this animal and I felt so helpless I couldn't do anything. And I say, you have done huge. You are a huge blessing to that animal that's dying. You are there. Your presence, the presence of your love and caring and compassion is huge beyond what you understand.
Yes. That's why I wanted you to talk about it. When I read that, I realized my mom, also transitioned 5 months
Yes.
ago. And I'm learning from all these experiences. It's
Yep.
been a challenging year, but when you wrote this about presence, I realized this is not just applying to animals. This is definitely applying to humans,
Yes.
because our elderly parents, or it doesn't matter how we live far away from them, but I think that need for connection, go to them. I spent months with
Yes.
my mom, and
Yes.
she appreciated the fact that I was present with her.
Yes.
um I thought I was doing it just for myself again, because I'm very close to my mom, and I thought, no, I want to be with her, but I didn't realize how important it was for her.
Mhm. Mhm.
They want to
That's
feel,
right.
we all want to feel acknowledged, or that our life meant something. Have that
Yeah.
witness. And
Yes.
we get so busy, Linda, with so many to-do lists and all
Mhm.
kinds of things, that we don't realize, like how you said in your book, being present, because animals
Correct.
are always present. That bird flying is not worried about his next meal. He knows, or she knows,
Mhm.
the source will
Yes.
provide. We are
Yeah, that's
always,
great. Great. We live in the present. And I say the only time anything ever happens is now, in the present.
yes,
We are so caught up in the past,
yes,
remorsing the past or worrying about the future. We don't really live in the present. And that's where our animals, again, are, whether it's the bird in the sky or the dog sitting here by my feet right now, the present moment. And that's where the joy is. That's where the love is, right here, right now. Yeah, that's
yes.
that's
In the
they're
last
great lessons.
pages of your book, you wrote many things. I mean, we started this chat talking about raising awareness, and
Mhm.
through awareness and knowledge and advice, and reading more about it and speaking more to people like you who are actively doing things, we can also do our bit, even though we have a job and we're not activists, we're at home, we have obligations. But you wrote quite a few pages of how we can do our little bit to help our animals on this planet. Feel free to share some of them with us, please.
Well, I think, first of all, the most important thing we can do, I believe that the most important thing that we are here to do is to become more spiritually awake. Now, what does that mean? That means that we don't have to sit and do a practice to connect.
Mhm.
We don't have to make our spiritual journey or our meditation practice something we do once a day or what. No, it should be a living presence within us. So that means when I go to the grocery store and I'm standing in line and I'm ready to bop somebody over the head because they're slow or whatever, I take a deep breath and I say, no, no, be kind, be compassionate, be caring. When it's my turn to pay for my groceries, smile. I advise everybody to say, the person who's working behind a counter for you, or in a restaurant, or in a bank, or in a grocery store, to pause for just a minute and look at them and say, how are you doing today?
Lovely.
That is so simple, but it's also so huge because you may be making that person's day. They may go home and be kinder to their spouse or be
Exactly.
kinder to their dog
Exactly.
or,
Exactly.
and so that is just the basics. Be kind and thoughtful. If you don't have anything nice to say, shut up. But in our communities, one thing we can do is even in our neighborhoods, have an awareness of our dogs. If you see a stray animal, help out. Don't assume that somebody else is going to help. Get out there and do your thing. Or if an animal is hit, don't assume somebody else is going to stop. You be the one to stop. When it comes to um, if you have a yard, you can do the least little things you can do. You can plant perennials that are food for birds and bees and all the pollinators. It's a joyful experience to see that happening as the seasons change. Here, I teach people to do that. You can take care of your parks. If you live near an ocean, you can gather friends and neighbors and clean up the beaches. You can talk to your local government people.
Mhm.
Whatever is going on in your neighborhood, show up, be responsible, do whatever you can. Get involved with what's happening right in your own doorstep.
Right at our own doorstep. You remind me of that thing that they say, you can throw that little pebble in the pond
Mhm.
and the ripple effect
The
it
ripple
has.
effect.
And you reminded me about that when you spoke about the cashier, because
Yeah,
you don't know what the effect your actions,
yeah,
your
yeah,
thoughts have,
yeah, yeah.
how that ripples through. And Linda, sometimes people feel, oh, we're sitting here. What can we do about the animals in Africa or the mammals and all? We we're so consumed and we feel that we can't do anything about them. I do think we can, like you said,
Yeah.
speak to. I love one thing that happened, and again, I'm guilty of that. When my kids were growing up, Linda, I'm so guilty of this. I would take them to the sea aquarium,
Hmm.
and I had my kids very young. I was in my early 20s when I had children, and the highlight was seeing the big whale,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
in
Yeah.
the sea aquarium. This was the early 80s, and I'm
You
so
didn't know.
ashamed to admit that
Yeah.
I did not know
You
what
didn't know.
I didn't know. So that's
Didn't
why
know.
I say I didn't know back then, but then obviously I'm watching documentaries and
Sure.
I will, thank God these sea aquariums are not holding or they're closing down sea
Right.
aquariums. They're
Right.
not holding these beautiful sea life the way they used to. And
Mhm.
we can now go, which I just recently did for healing, self healing. I went out whale watching, and that was the
Oh,
most magnificent
yes.
experience. But the closest that people could get to know animals would go to the zoo or go to these sea aquariums. And now I'm so glad that we have now the ability to, there are, all these expeditions or excursions organized. My On my huge bucket list, and actually this was since I was 4 years old, was to do a
Mhm.
safari. So I
Oh,
think in my dreams I've done many safaris already. um, I've done many in my dreams, but I'm actually going to go to one this year. I'm still trying to do more research on which ones, because there's several. And
yeah.
see the migration. And I think coming physically closer to them,
Mm.
it changes your life. It changes your
Yes.
life on how we see things. And when you wrote, about be conscious of what you eat, you
Mm-hmm.
remind me,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope all of us again, how that, meal came to the table. My
Yes.
father always told me, Nitu, he calls me Nitu, the vibrations of that animal, you
Mm-hmm.
have to understand those are the vibrations you're going to be taking in. The fright,
Yes.
the scare, the horror, the anguish, the suffering, all that. Now, I don't want to guilt people into anything. I just want people to know that yes, it is there, and just try and be more conscious next
Yes.
time.
Right.
We,
Right.
we
And notice I I spent many years as a vegetarian. I had to start eating a little bit of seafood and chicken because just for health
yes,
issues I was having. But I say, and even if you're a vegetarian, you look at your food, the food is such a blessing.
we
And particularly if there's an animal who gave its life for you and that animal is on your plate, offer a blessing. It's sacred. It is sacred. It's sacred.
The tribal people, I remember, I mean, I've only seen movies about it, but when they would go out hunting, they knew more than we do. The way they
Oh,
hunt
yeah.
and the way they say their prayers, or their respect and
Respect.
gratitude
Hmm.
towards a bear or a deer. And I'm talking about not the ones that hunt for pleasure. I'm talking about the tribes from
Yes,
those olden
feeding.
days,
Right.
how they did that, and that was quite sacred, you know,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
very,
And even in the wild, if you observe a pride of lions and they have their say an antelope. Well, there is a whole process to the way they feed, and I watched it, and I was awestruck by the respect that these lions had for this animal that they killed. It was, I mean, without going into detail, it was extraordinary, the respect, and how after when, they had finished their rounds of the bride, and they would just lie there, almost a circle of gratitude to this being that they were able to feed
your
on. It was
experience with the white
lovely.
lions, right? For you,
Yes.
was
Uh-huh.
huge. I remember, I mean, when I was reading that, you made my desire to go and see more and
Mm.
more animals, because I live here in Hong Kong, and you're
Yes.
on the east coast of the United States. And we've all now we're in urban areas, but I go very
Right.
often up in the mountains of British Columbia. For 30 years, I go every year, and the place where I stay, it's a place called Whistler in British Columbia. And in my backyard, I'm surrounded everywhere are bears.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful bears, and I'll send you some photos. It's very strange, Linda. I've never been afraid of them coming to my backyard. Obviously, I won't feed them or encourage
Right.
them, but the
Right.
respect the people have, the residents of Whistler, they know that we have encroached on their habitat.
Yes. 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 And we have, and
We
we
have
continue
encroached on
to
their
do.
habitat. So what we do is, yes, when we see bears, I've only had to do it once because this bear just would not leave and would just stand there. We couldn't even go out our front door because but what they do is you call the authorities. There is a wonderful office there that you call, and then they come right away and they escort the bear they back into the mountain. So they
Oh, really?
bear all the way back. They escort the bear, so nothing. They will never ever put mhm, these animals to death. Not in Whistler. And also, when you walk around, and that's rare, okay, that they put these bears, because we walk
Yeah.
and we play golf, or I don't play
Uh-huh.
golf, but people play golf. I go on my walks, and you pass a bear, and every summer because they wake up from their hibernation, and
Right.
every
Right.
summer they come and forage and look for their food, right? So that's why they come to your front door because they can smell your cooking, and they
Sure.
have to start
Sure.
collecting food for their harsh winter because it's up in the mountains and it's
Yes.
snow to the wazoo. And the the residents of Whistler, oh yeah, they walk by and they bike, and the bear just passes them, and it's in the beginning I thought, I think, is this normal? And they would be like, oh yes, and then they'll announce to the golfers when I pass the golf course, bear on hole 8, and the bear's sitting there at hole 8 of the golf course, and no one's chasing the bear away. They will nicely wait for the bear to realize there's no food here and there's no berries. And
Uh-huh.
when I say food, they're looking for berries or leaves
Yeah.
or fruits. Then they'll walk away, and then the golfers will continue playing. And that's why I love Whistler, and I keep going there for 30 years. The respect that they have there for
Hmm.
all
For the
living
wildlife.
species.
That's
Oh,
so beautiful. I love to
animals.
hear.
Oh, you have to see,
Yeah.
and that's also taught me a lot, and I feel a lot of connection, like you said, to nature.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not only your pets; it's all nature
It's
that
all
you
nature.
grow.
I think what you brought up, though, is a wonderful example of how when you are in a situation where there is a bear or,
Mhm.
some kind of wild animal there. I'm not talking about lions in the,
Yeah,
I'm not talking about being
yeah,
foolish, but the energy and the vibrations that you put out, your emotions, if you put out fear,
yeah.
fear, fear, anger, fear, that immediately is picked up by the animal. And that sets up a very different dynamic than if you just, hello, friend, I'm not going to hurt you. We're all good here. I'm just passing through. It's a very, very different dynamic. Quick story about an elephant.
Yeah.
I was in it was East Africa, and it was in Savo, and I was out with a guide, and we were in our Jeep, and we were going to stop for a little tea. We were going to have tea and some sweets, and we were looking for a spot. And so we were going very slowly, and then we came upon a small group of elephants. There were, I think, two or three grown females, and there were two youngsters. And we stopped, and he said, "Oh, well, we'll be okay. We'll just stop." And I said, "Can we just stop and watch them for just a minute? And he said, sure. And I was on the left side of the Jeep by the door and the window, and the elephants were here on my left. And initially I looked over and the mom, one of the mothers was, well, the baby was in between the mom and the Jeep, which is not so good. And she immediately was, whoa, I don't like this. And she came over about, I'd say, 15 feet, and she toward the baby and pushed the baby away to be careful. And then she took her trunk and she just stared at the Jeep, at me. I was sending a lot of love and, hey, it's okay. I love you. It's wonderful. You're safe. I wouldn't hurt you, whatever. So she was checking me out energetically. And it was the sweetest thing because she took her trunk and she tapped it on the mirror. She walked over and tapped the mirror on the Jeep with her trunk, tapped it about 4 times and huffed and puffed. And then she looked, and then she stepped back and allowed the baby to come close.
Unbelievable, unheard of, because they're very protected.
I was so I didn't move. I didn't do anything. I was just sending out the intention of love and caring and it's okay and peace and nothing about fear or whatever. And it was so beautiful the way she allowed
Mm.
the young one to come over because the little one was curious.
Yeah.
What's this? What's this? Um, so that intention is so powerful, so strong.
I would love for you to take us through a meditation, Linda, because I
Sure.
feel that that could be a beginning that we can practice in our bedroom, just in our own home, and connect with nature, with the divine which is within us, and
Mhm.
that connects with the divine all over.
Right.
And when we're done with that, you wrote a beautiful prayer, and I would love for you to share that prayer
Okay.
when you're
Thank you.
ready with
I
us.
will.
So
So
please
what
tell us
what I can
how do you suggest we start?
so I'll start by just saying that what what is so easy for us all to do is not think of meditating or connecting as something other than who we are and what we are and what we can feel. It's something that we can invite in all the time. And so many people ask me about how they can connect with a being, for example, a beloved pet who's crossed over, who's passed away. I get that so often. And we tend to get in the way of connecting because we try, we try, we try. So what I like to have people learn to do is just stop trying anything, simply focusing on the heart and going from there and connecting to, as that physicist said, something out there is doing something I know not what. We'll call it God, presence, love. For me, it's the power and essence of God's love that connects all beings. And it doesn't matter if that being is incarnate here with us or has crossed over, we can still connect on an energetic, loving level. So I'd like to just walk us through a little thing that I do. And it's a possibility that your experience may bring someone in, may bring an animal in, could even be a person, could be just a sense of love. It could be an angel, could be anything. But it's a good way to dive into another realm, another dimension, another consciousness, because that's where all doors open. Saint Francis, who was so close to animals and was a lover of nature and connected with all beings and helped so many people. And his monks used to come to him and say, Francis, teach us to be like you. Teach us, I want to be just like you. And he would say, I am merely a keyhole through which you can gaze, but you must do the journey yourself. It is your life, your journey, your opening. So it's about experiencing an inner dimension. And that's what I'll introduce us to.
Thank you. Thank
All right.
you.
So just relax, get in a comfortable space. Remembering that, the Buddha, the Buddha did not gain enlightenment by getting a PhD and knowledge and in spiritual science. The Buddha gained enlightenment by sitting under a tree. We can all connect. We can all connect. So make yourself comfortable. And let yourself go a little bit. And it's always better if you close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths in. And what I'd like you to do as you close your eyes, give yourself permission to relax. And try to be as calm and peaceful as you can, but give yourself permission to open on that level. Take a few deep breaths in, no struggle, no stress. In through your nose, out through your mouth. This will help you relax. Help give yourself a few deep breaths. And then now, what I'd like you to do is imagine that you're standing on a beautiful beach at sunrise. It's a gorgeous day. The sky is bursting with beautiful colors. The sunlight seems to flow across the water like liquid gold. The temperature of the air is just the perfect temperature for you. In your mind's eye, see that beautiful beach, the sand. Hear the sound of the ocean. The waves are creating a beautiful, peaceful sound. Focus on that. Let that gentle rhythm soothe your spirit. It's as if the waves of relaxation are flowing all around your body right now. It's so peaceful. Let that gentle rhythm soothe your spirit. Flowing around your body, letting you leave your physical, mental, and emotional stress behind. It begins to wash away. Now bring your awareness to your facial muscles. Notice any tension and allow those waves to melt that tension away. The relaxing waves will flow down to your jaw, down your neck, your shoulders relax, your arms, your hands, your fingers, allowing those waves to relax your spine. Relaxing now down, penetrating deeply through your legs, your thighs, your knees, your lower legs, and your feet. Now bring your attention to your heart and feel those waves of peace and calm and love expanding outward from your heart, out, expanding in all directions. Allow that calm, peace, and love to accompany you, surround you as you continue in your mind's eye walking along that beach. The sound of the waves, the sun, the gentle breeze, allowing you to just be in the present moment. Notice the beauty of the waves, the blue of the sky as you walk along, the whiteness of the sand. There may be a few birds in the sky. You may gaze to the water and see a creature jumping up, a fish, a bird diving. Continue to walk along the water's edge. Now direct your gaze out in front of you as you walk. Notice as you walk in the distance, you see a cloudy vision way out ahead of you in the distance. That cloud becomes as if it's a form, it's a formation that's appearing. You can't tell what it is, it's just a wavy cloud, but you're walking toward it. You're wondering, what is that? What could that be? As you get closer, the cloudiness tends to become a form. As you gaze at it gently, opening your heart to all possibilities, any possibilities, something starts to evolve. It could be the shape of a body. It could be the presence of a bird. It could be the presence of an animal. It could be the presence of an angel, a guide. Someone, something is there offering themselves to you. It could be just a feeling, a sensing, or it could be a vision, could be an animal, could be anything. Allow that connection to come closer. Ask permission to whatever it is, whoever it is that is forming. Would you please, may I ask who you are? Show me. Give me a thought. Give me a feeling. Show me something. Simply observe and allow. If something happens, just allow a connection. It could be just a feeling, could be a vision. Connect with whatever comes to you. And be with that presence, be with that feeling, be with this experience for the next few moments. I will watch the time. Just allow yourself to be. While your heart is open, don't be afraid to ask or feel or see. This is your time. Your heart is open and connecting with whatever is with you now. If you have a question, Feel free to ask. And know, as we close this conversation, this feeling, this knowing, know that you can do this. You can come back here anytime to this special place. Allow this to be a special place for you to be in your heart, in love. And now we'll bring ourselves back and look at the beach and notice the waves. Feel the breeze on our face. Allow whatever is happening to bid adieu. And say a thank you and a blessing for whatever experience has come to you. Offer yourself a few slow, deep breaths. Coming back now. Coming back into the room, into your body. Gently moving your arms and legs, and whenever you're ready, open your eyes. Here we are.
Linda, thank you. I was brought to tears because today is my mom's birthday, and it's the first birthday that I'm without her. And this meditation was very powerful today on this very beautiful, special day for me, mental also.
Oh, blessings.
It was
Yeah.
really beautiful. A sense of calm with your voice and your vibrations, obviously, that you emanate through your sound was absolutely beautiful. And I hope and I'm sure everyone that's listening is having their own experiences.
Yes. Yes.
So much. Linda, you wrote a beautiful, beautiful poem.
My poem.
I would love to, before you leave, I would love for you to recite the poem that you wrote.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a blessing for me to do that. This came to me in like a prayer.
It's a prayer.
Because I simply asked, and I think this is the very basic. If there's nothing else we can do, we can just open ourselves and allow Spirit, God, the angels, whatever, to come through us. We can simply be that vehicle through which Spirit moves and works every day, every minute of our lives. And this came to me when I was asking for help on how I can serve. And I wrote, "Oh, great Spirit, to better serve the animals, in humble prayer I ask. Show me what I need to see. Teach me what I need to learn. Show me truth. Ignite my heart. Transform my being so that I may serve as a vehicle through which your voice flows out to the world, helping those who have no voice." Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Today was a personal gift for me, what you brought to me, and the work that you do. I'm so happy there are people like you that don't give up and keep teaching and taking their, time off their schedule to continue spreading the word because it is the only way. It is. And everyone, I will put all the links where you can get her
Oh,
amazing book.
thank you.
And I know you will derive a lot of wisdom from this the way I have. I thought I knew quite a bit, but no, I mean every other page or page is underlined and highlighted. It's an incredible gift, especially during this time of the year, Christmas, when it's the spirit of we want to give, and especially with the new year starting, saying, this is the year where, yes, we can make a difference, even however small. It's a ripple effect, and we can.
Yeah,
Oh, Dr.
thank you.
Linda Bender, thank you so much, and
Yeah,
and keep on doing what you do, because
thank you.
all of you, never
Please,
give up.
please remember that the gods never burst in the front door. The gods usually come quietly in through the back. And know that all the things that you do, you may not think they're huge, but it's important that you do it. Never give up. Never, ever give up. Always have hope in your heart. At night before I go to bed, it can be very, very powerful. And also, it's when people are talking about, oh my gosh, how can I connect to my animal who's left? And even if you do something like this and you don't even get anything, don't worry about it because it happens, magic happens when then you go to sleep.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just, it's beautiful. It's, if nothing else, it's intention. And then intention leads to fulfillment when you're not trying, when you're asleep or things come in the night or first thing in the morning. It's beautiful. Thank you. Mwah.